Hello, and welcome to Communicating Good, a podcast by Sam-A-Lot Media, a communication strategy and content production consultancy. I'm Sam, your host, and the Sam of Sam-A-Lot. This week, I'm joined by Sue Scott. Sue is a veteran stage and voiceover actor who for 24 years was the female cast member on the public radio show A Prairie Home Companion. In 2019, she created a live podcast, Island of Discarded Women, which addresses real-world issues facing women today via personal stories, social commentary, and original music from the all-female cast, plus inspiring conversations with special guests. The podcast is live once a month in a dinner club setting at the Women's Club of Minneapolis. In this episode of Communicating Good, you'll get to hear about the trajectory of Sue's career, her thoughts on the importance of storytelling, how improv comedy skills are valuable in the workplace and everywhere else, really, and more. So let's get to it. Sue, welcome to Communicating Good.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
So glad you're here. And I have a bunch of stuff I want to talk to you about, but let's start with your origin story. What brought you to this moment in time? What made you the person you are today? What did that look like? What are those experiences?
Well, I was a professional actor I guess I still am, starting from college on, and did theater and moved to the Twin Cities. I'm not from here. I'm originally from Tucson, Arizona. Mm-hmm. I was actually born in California, but I grew up in Tucson, Arizona. And I moved to the Twin Cities because of all the theater that was happening here. And started doing voiceover work. I worked for Dudley Riggs' Brave New Workshop, doing improv. And that opened all sorts of doors for meeting different parts of different people in the community, actors, comedians, improvers. So I was really fortunate about that, to do that, and did commercial work on camera and voiceover work, which, as every actor knows, helps pays the bills. And and then in 1992, I auditioned for Garrison Keillor. He was looking for two local actors to fill out the cast for A Prairie Home Companion. And I got cast. And that was in 1992, and that lasted for 24 years. So I did that for 24 years, and that was amazing. And I learned a lot about a different style of acting. So that was acting for the radio, which I had done voiceover work and been in studios for years, in a booth, with headphones and standing in front of a microphone. I had never done live radio in front of a live audience. And so it was kind of a hybrid between working in front of a microphone in a studio and doing theater. It was really sort of a hybrid. And I learned all sorts of new, I could add to my character bag of tricks. I was always a sort of a character actor, because the microphone became another tool that I could use. And so I could do voices with a microphone that I could never do on stage, because you wouldn't be able to hear it. You wouldn't be able to project, but I could do these really small, intimate voices, which was really fun. So that was, it really helped grow my talents as an actor beyond what I ever would have dreamed of, as a theater major in college. Mm-hmm. I assumed I would be doing theater and maybe a little bit of film and television, you never know. But radio acting, who does that? So that was a very unique experience that I am fortunate to have had. And then there was a time when a transition was made on the radio show, and it was decided that I would not be invited to continue with that transition. And I can label it all sorts of things. It was bottom line is I lost my job because of my age. And there's opinions about, I can get emotional about it. I can get angry about it. People can have opinions as to why I might be wrong in my assessment. But the bottom line is I lost my job because of my age. And that sort of threw me for a loop. And I was just 59 at the time and thought, what do I do with all these years on the radio and all these audio skills from being in the booth and my theater skills and the fact that I was at the top of my game one day and then too old the next day, literally like a day apart kind of a thing. And what do I do with that energy and that need to still produce, create, and yet I also had a need to speak up and speak out. Mm-hmm. and I was craving other women's stories, and I was craving how they had overcome obstacles. And, some people might call it a second act or a next chapter or all those things. But what to do with my desire to keep working and to keep creating. And so I started a podcast called Island of Discarded Women. And that's where we are today.
Wonderful.
So I know we'll get more into that, but that's, I think, generally my origin story as to where I am now.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you began raising your voice about this, when you were maybe first concepting the podcast, what kind of reactions did you get?
Well, I have a graveyard of early podcast ideas and demos.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I have a lot of demos. Some of them were very expensive. I thought, we're going to go into a studio and we're going to raise women's voices it's going to be an all women run, all women written, all women performed. We're going to do topical stories, satire, all written and performed by women. And that was a really cool idea. The problem with that was when you're doing something timely, whether it's satire, comedy, storytelling, whatever, it also can take a while to edit, all that, market it, all that kind of stuff. And so I realized, it takes me like 3 or 4 weeks to get my act together to release the episode. And by then that timely story might not be so timely anymore. Mm-hmm. So I sort of abandoned that idea, and it was going to be an interview show. I'm going to interview all these amazing women mm-hmm. that I am longing to talk to, who have either been in a similar situation or have overcome obstacles or found their truth or did something that I just find very inspiring. I'm going to interview inspiring women. And that's what I'm going to do. And then it was, I'm going to interview them in a studio or at my house or at their houses, or, how are we going to do this? And where is the satire in it? And then there was an idea of, we'll do a reoccurring series along with the interview show. That's something that brings a bunch of women together and that maybe humorously deals with our situation or things going on in the world. And an idea from another writer was, what about the adventures of all these women living on the island of discarded women? Mm-hmm. And then I realized in the middle of the night, no, that's the podcast. That is the podcast. And we have all washed up on this island for many, many reasons. We're all ourselves. Mm-hmm. And then there's a podcast within the podcast. And I know it gets a little deep, and then I interview all those amazing women that I want to interview. Mm. And then we were given the opportunity to do the show live at a women's expo in 2019. Can you do your podcast live? And I only at this point, we had recorded one demo. The first episode was recorded. And I thought it was going to be recorded. And sure, we could do it live. And doing it live made so much sense. Mm-hmm. It's what I had been doing for 2.5 decades. It's like, duh, why am I not doing this live? So then we set out to do it live. And back to your original question about a reaction, I got people saying to me, the title's a little negative. Isn't the title negative? Why isn't it about, if you're about uplifting women's voices and speaking up and speaking out and being creative and giving underserved populations of women a chance to speak and their voices to be heard. Why is it called Island of Discarded Women? Why don't you call it like something more positive? And I said, it's satire. It's satire. And it's like, oh, right, it's satire. To me, the title means I don't also have to say, and by the way, we do satire. I feels like I get that box gets checked. Also, I wanted, this was 3+ years ago. It was still the Wild West of podcasting, which I guess some could say it's still that way in some sense, but in other sense, podcasting has become very almost corporatized. A lot of these big companies, including now Netflix and, I don't know if it's Amazon or whether it's like, we're going to create podcasts that then can be like pilots for TV shows. Why don't we try it out in a podcast form? And then it's a lot cheaper that way. And then we'll see, or movies or whatever. So that has taken it in a whole different direction, which is cool. It's all cool. But as you know, there's still people starting podcasts in their basement.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's still that. And it's, so I also wanted something, a title that could maybe jump out and be noticed. And, we got blocked by Facebook. We tried to start our podcast page for Island of Discarded Women. And we didn't know it was happening at first. 2 days after starting the page, we got red flagged.
Really?
And we need to check. We need proof of your identity, this and this and this. I'm like, whatever. And then it literally was, okay, we'll let you know. And a week later, we were back up. No warning from Facebook. No, like you're in Facebook jail. None of that. Mm-hmm. It was just, we need to double check about this and we'll let you know. And so we were literally, we were shut down, and then we're back up. Oh, great. We're done with it. So we started posting some things. 2 days later, the same thing happened. Exact same thing happened. Mm-hmm. And somebody said, you know what it is? It's the title. Some algorithm is flagging that title as something abusive to women. They don't. So then I went on Twitter and Instagram and said, Facebook doesn't get satire. Facebook doesn't get satire. They don't get it. So we changed the name to IODW, mm-hmm. Island of Discarded Women, IODW podcast, which has caused problems because people are like, well, what is that? I looked for Island of Discarded Women. I couldn't find it. I go, yeah, well, anyway, talk to Facebook about it. So we probably should have maybe made a bigger deal that it was actually a podcast called. And then maybe Facebook would have said, oh, it's not like some kinky place where you're taking women against their will or something. It's like, no. So that was all very interesting. So there has been a reaction to the title, but ultimately it is spurring conversation. Mm-hmm. And if it spurs conversation, even if the conversation is an email to me saying early on, I've heard your podcast. I've been there live. It's so positive. Why is it called that? I'm like, because it is, because I'm trying to make a statement. And I went a satirical route, and it totally works. Even my husband was like, I think they might be right. I go, no, sorry, I'm sticking with it. And what's really lovely, Samantha, is when you get the lovely older women fans, and all white haired, adorable, lovely women who have lived longer than I have. Let's just put it that way. Maybe quite a bit longer than I have. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, is this where Island of Discarded Women is? We're here. We bought our tickets. We're here. We're so excited to be here. And it's like, it just is. It is what it is. But like I said, to me, there's a lot of, I'm trying to make a statement here. We're trying to make some statements here. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to sugarcoat that we still have a long way to go. Mm-hmm.
Has there been a difference in the way that men versus women responded to the name of the show?
I did have, there was an article that Star Tribune did when we first started our live shows back in somewhere of 2019, or we started them on a regular basis, on a monthly basis. Mm-hmm. And a beautiful big article that the Star Tribune did, full page of the Variety on Sunday. It was this great exposure. And there were some comments on the newspaper article through the newspaper comments saying, well, men get discarded, men get aged out too, And it was this sort of thing of, it's not just women. And my response, I didn't respond because people said, don't respond. Mm-hmm. Don't respond. You can respond if they send you an email, which I do. I respond to every email. Mm-hmm. But don't respond when it's because they can make up names and it can kind of get can be a volatile situation. Let's put it that way. But what I wanted to say was, great, then start your own podcast. Mm-hmm. This is why is it women only? Why? Because I am a woman. It's based on my experience and the women that I want to lift up and celebrate and learn from and be motivated by and inspired by. This is my take. Mm-hmm. Go for it, dude. Start your own podcast about all the things that you think men are discarded and aged out. Because yes, men get aged out as well, of course. So that was kind of my thing or as we say at our house, start your own damn podcast. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if I can say that on your podcast.
Sure.
So it was sure, but this is my experience coming from my experience. And these are the women, this is the, conceptually, these are the people that I want to lift up. Yeah. So that's why. So, but we have men that come. We are male allies, as we call them. Mm-hmm. We have men that come. We have men who buy the tickets. Mm-hmm. We have one woman wrote to me and said, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I got dumped from my job. I'm only in my early 50s. I got totally dumped from my job. I've been trying to find TED Talks and books, and my husband's trying to help me. And he discovered your podcast. It's like the best thing that has ever happened to me. And I'm so grateful to my husband for discovering your podcast." I'm like, I wrote saying, "Can I tell you that I'm also very impressed that your husband discovered my podcast?" Mm-hmm. So there is that as well, that there's, we have our male ally fans, which is lovely. Yeah, which is lovely.
That's great.
Yeah.
And so obviously all this is grounded in stories and storytelling. Yes. Why do you think the stories, the narratives that we're telling each other matter so much?
To me personally, there is nothing better than a personal story. Mm-hmm. When someone shares something about themselves in whatever form it is, whether it's through a poem or through a song or through a story or whatever, there's just such a connection that I make with, that I feel like I'm making with that person, that they are allowing me to make with them, that I don't think it gets any better than that. So it might be a funny story. It might be a very poignant story. It might be a story that's hard to hear. It might be a painful story. It may not be a story that has a happy ending. Or is wrapped up in a bow. It may be a story that has no ending at all yet. And yet it's just sharing of the personal, connecting from person to person. And I crave it. I absolutely crave it. So this podcast also has given me a platform or allowed me to put a platform out there for women to share their stories. And some of the stories are amazing. They're all amazing. All of the stories are amazing. And I am so honored and of the women who are willing to share their personal stories on our podcast. I am humbled and honored.
I've had the opportunity to listen to most of the episodes and haven't yet been to one of your live events, although I hope to soon.
Yes.
I can say that just from my listening to them from a distance through my earphones in my home, I'm so moved by, and there's such a feeling of catharsis on some of the stories that I've heard. I can only imagine that it must feel that way in the room.
Oh, it does.
Yeah,
it does. And often, depending on what the story is about, often in rehearsal, there's tears. Often there can be tears, even if it's not a sad story. It's more of, the cast member. They might be one of our regular cast members. They might be somebody, a guest cast member, a guest artist, guest contributor. And it might even be something that's humorous or funny, but it's so personal that the first time that they share it out loud, it's a very vulnerable situation, a very, very vulnerable situation. And it can often bring up emotion, and they'll say, I don't know why I'm getting teary. This is like a funny story. And I'm like, it's because the anticipation of the vulnerability. And that's like, okay, I'm stepping out here now. I'm going to actually say this out loud. I'm actually going to say this out loud. Sure. And maybe it's the first time that they've ever done it. And so I think that, but we always say in rehearsal, that's what rehearsal's for. Rehearsals for getting the emotion. And then I always say to everybody, don't worry about the emotion coming through during the actual show. Don't worry about it. It's human. Please don't manufacture it. Don't feel like you have to manufacture something, because we're authentic and we're honest here. But if emotion comes up and maybe in a place where it seems sort of odd to you, it's like, for some reason I'm getting touched right now. That's okay. Because what I love about the live experience is that I do clean up. I do edit the podcast version of the show that we've done live, but that live audience has heard everything. They've heard everything. They've heard a stumble, trips and stumbles, and someone repeats a word or something. They've heard a microphone drop. They've heard all that. They've witnessed all that. I will clean up 99% of that before the podcast gets out there. Sometimes I leave things in because it lends itself to some kind of a humorous moment or something. But for the most part, I'll clean all that up. I don't take out any cracks in a voice because of emotion. Of course, I don't take any of that out. So there's a little bit of cleaning up that happens between what happened live and when you heard it. But it doesn't affect the honesty and the vulnerability that you've heard. And so I guess I'm so humbled that everybody's like, yeah, I'll tell this story. Sure. And then they're like, oh, shoot, did I actually say yes? And now I'm at rehearsal hours before the real thing. And this is scary for me to tell this story. And I'll say, let's work through the emotion. Let's just do it right now. And if it comes up again during the show, doesn't matter. So there's a real bonding that happens, I think, if I might say so. I know a bonding happens with us performing, whoever's performing, including our special guests. But I can tell just from the feedback that there's a bonding that happens with the audience as well. And the fact that so many people come back every month. Yeah.
I'm sure that you've been impacted to some extent by all the stories that have been told, but are there any that really just grabbed you?
It's so funny because you mentioned that in your prep to me, in your email, and I was looking at that, doing a little homework, before we started this, and my initial reaction was, it's like a mother, I love them all, they're all my favorites, but it was a really interesting question because I do think there's a few times when somebody went past where I even thought they were going to go. So as far as the interview, the conversation that I have with the special guest, because there's stories that are told by our, cast members or guest cast members. And then there's the interview that I do where stories are being told as well, the conversation. And I pre-interview all my special guests because I want to have a better idea of some of the questions. So they have an idea of some of the questions I'm going to ask them and get more information about those topics. Also, I want to double check, are there some topics that they don't want to talk about that is too sensitive or tricky for them? Or are there topics or digressions, for instance, that I don't know about yet? I stalk all my guests. They send me things. I dig up their websites, their TED Talks, their Facebook pages, their LinkedIn, blah, blah. And, but still there might be something that's outside of that. So I pre-interview everybody. But there again, I don't know everything they're going to say, and nor do they know everything that I'm going to ask and in the order that I'm going to ask it. And so, for instance, one example, Susan Kimberly, she's a transgender icon, trailblazer, and she transitioned. She's in her early 80s now, I think, late 70s for sure, early 80s. Sorry, Susan, if you're hearing this, that I not remember exactly, but anyway, she's been around for quite a while. She didn't transition until she was in her 40s. So she was Bob. She was married. She had a career started, major career started. And then, so we were talking and she'd written a play. And so I had read the play and that was helpful for my research as well. So I was asking her about the first time that she said she started wearing dresses when she was 3. She asked her mother if she could wear dresses when she was 3. And this is in the 1940s, it's 1941. Wow. And her mother said, yes, but not around the rest of the family. But if it's just you and me, yes, you can, which we thought was pretty progressive for 1941. And then she got a little, she said, you could never show the neighborhood, never do anything, just with me. And I asked her, so I knew that part. That was part of her history about when she, when someone said, when did you first notice that that this didn't make sense? Wearing the boy clothes, doing the boy things where this doesn't make sense. And she's I started wanting to ask my mother if I could wear a dress when I was 3. So when we were doing the show live, so I knew she was going to go there because that was, part of her story. And I said, how did that feel? Did it just make sense when you put that dress on when you were 3 years old? Do you remember how that felt?
Mm-hmm.
And she leaned into the microphone and she said, oh, I absolutely remember. It didn't just make sense. It felt sublime. Mm. And there was just kind of like your reaction right there. Mm-hmm. There was just this,
yeah,
from the audience, there was just this moment and I got really moved. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking, okay, now I need to say the next thing, right? And I'm touched. And there was just this long pause afterwards. And you just want to go, just the word, the choice of the word. And it wasn't even that. It was just like, she's like, no, it didn't just make sense. Mm-hmm. It felt sublime. A 3-year-old is feeling that feeling. Now, granted, she's probably attached a word to it as an older woman,
sure,
to that little 3-year-old. But the way she said it, you want to go, okay, we're done. We're done. The question about if anybody's questioning the transgendering thing and whatever, everybody's politics and personal experiences, whatever, we're done. Mm-hmm. We're just, all you have to hear, Susan, is you have to hear her say that and we're done. There should be no more questions about this. And so that was a moment. That's a moment that jumps out to me. That was just really kind of incredible.
Yeah.
And, there are some others. Kathy Werzer, just the episode that we just did. Mm-hmm. She mentioned something that I did not know she was going to go there. And it was, I asked her if she had felt like she had ever been growing up in broadcast journal as a broadcast journalist. Mm-hmm. Did it ever feel, or has it always felt, or maybe none or both or in between, that she was a woman working in a man's world? Mm. And first she said, no one's ever asked me that before. Wow. I did warn her I was going to ask her that when we did our pre-interview, but she said, oh, let me think about that. So we went on to other topics in the pre-interview. So then on stage, she says, since you asked me that question, I've been thinking about it. I do think I changed my personality to fit in as an early, when I got into broadcast early on. And I was like, what? So what?
Yeah.
I said, you did? And she said, yeah, I do. I think I changed my personality. In fact, I know I did. I became rougher and tougher because, and there again, it was the audience was like, oh, this is this groundbreaking? No. Is this shocking? No. Is this affirming of a societal norm that we're so used to and that needs to change?
Sure.
Yes. Unfortunately, yes. Mm-hmm. And it was just interesting because you could tell, I felt like she was trying to work it out on stage with me. She was like, yeah, I think I changed. I think I did change. And it's like how? And she said, I'm just a little bolder, a little rougher. She said, more like a little rougher. But I'm thinking she's working this out with me right here on stage. Yeah. Even though I had given her the prompt earlier just to think about, you could tell this wasn't like, oh, blah, 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 blah. Oh yeah, I did I thought about this ahead of time. So I'm just giving you that as an example of those moments where you just think, this is cool. Mm-hmm. This is cool. One might say as an interviewer, you go, oh, I wasn't ready for that answer. Okay, cool. And I've had that such a sense too, where someone has told me in their pre-interview a story that takes 15 minutes, all these details. So I say, hey, tell us, if you could you shared a story with me about such and such when we were talking earlier. Tell us that story. And they tell me the story in one sentence. And I'm thinking, where's all that? I'm thinking, where's all those cool details that you were telling me earlier? Sure. So then I just prompt them. So then just say, hey, you were telling me. They're like, oh, right. And then they go into it and stuff like that. So I've learned a ton as far as, how to, not only conduct an interview, have a conversation, but what to do when there's something that I didn't know, I didn't plan on. And I'm not a veteran journalist, I'm an actor faking it. So, and having a blast doing it. And I think I credit my mother with a sense of uber sense of curiosity. Uber. I mean, off the chart sense of curiosity. She could talk to anybody about anything and just always wanted to know about them. That was her thing. Don't you want to know about people? Aren't you just curious? I'm like, yeah. So I know I picked that up from her. And I think that has served me really, really well with the interviewing part, the conversation part of the podcast, because I'm so, like, someone will say, they'll say, well, this isn't very interesting, but the answer to your question is probably, and I'm thinking, no, that's very interesting. Are you kidding me? That's incredibly interesting. And they're like, really? Okay, maybe. So it's, I can think of some more examples, but I don't want to, I want to allow you to sort of jump in and ask and maybe ask more questions if you've got them, but
sure. I have more questions, but I'm loving your stories too. One of my questions is about improv, and has that, the skills that you developed early on in relation to improv, as in the course of doing improv, are those things that you've turned back to as you've done all your other work?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. 100%, 155%. Yeah. In fact, I might have friends or, even people I don't even know who might have been fans of the radio show in the old days. My daughter wants to go into theater and she's a high school student or whatever. And what would you recommend? And it's like improv. Sure. Take singing lessons, dancing lessons, go be in community theater or be in the high school play or sing in choir in church or do all those things that put you out in front of people, because your daughter may find out she doesn't actually like to be in front of people. And so that's the first rule of thumb. Get her out there where she's like, oh, this is cool. I like this. And then find a place where she can learn improv skills. I think improv skills are helpful for anybody in any business, absolutely any business. And they are, a lot of the improv companies, including here in town, they offer the classes and seminars and workshops for corporate people and lawyers and doctors and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, that thing about, it's that think on your feet thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I so agree. I'm a good test case for that, because a few years back, so I am both introverted and socially awkward. And I know those two things don't always go hand in hand. With me, they very much do. And a few years back, I was offered some professional development through my work at the time, and was given a choice of, what did I want to do? And I knew I thought maybe about going to Toastmasters or something like that, but instead ended up taking some professionally geared, workplace geared improv courses from Dudley Riggs.
Yeah.
Or Brave New Workshop, excuse me. It was amazing. I came out of that, am I still introverted and socially awkward? Absolutely. But I came out feeling stronger and more confident, able to present more effectively in business settings.
Yeah.
And it was a, improv comedy based workshop. So it was fantastic.
Yeah, I can't recommend it highly enough for anybody. I mean, there's, and especially people who are in front of people, which ultimately aren't we all? I mean, whether it's customer service or, a restaurant gig, or you're a big, a lawyer and doing in court all the time, or you're a minister up at the pulpit, or you're whatever. So it can be anything from, well, I'm not in front of people. Yeah, I think you are in front of people. Whatever you do, you're in front of people, unless you literally are by yourself in your basement with a podcast, and that's it. And you just talk for an hour. You don't talk to anybody. Beyond that, we're all in front of people. And so I think that permission, probably, if I could sum this up, there's that permission we get to say, yes, I have worth, and what I have to say has worth, and people actually want to hear it. And, I did remember doing it years and years ago. I was asked to do a workshop for some social workers, a group of social workers. And a friend who was in the group said, can you do one of those kind of improv-y things with this group of social workers that I work with? Because they constantly, the issue was they constantly get asked to be an expert, maybe on a panel, maybe on the 6 o'clock news, maybe, there's, about some subject where they want the social worker perspective besides the doctor, the lawyer, the, whatever. And they freeze. She said they're all like, oh, I'm so scared. I don't really know. And they feel intimidated. Oh, well, this doctor knows better than me, and this professor knows better than me, and I'm just a social worker. And so I thought, oh, okay. So we did this workshop. It's like a 3-hour-long thing at someone's house. And I just gave them a prompt, and I said, tell me what you do. Tell me what your expertise is. Because they all had their sort of, their sort of niche, expertise. What is get up and tell me what your expertise is. And keep in mind that you are the keynote speaker being paid lots of money, and everybody here is here to hear you. There's nobody else. You're the one. Tell us what you do. You're the star. And it was really interesting because people were like, well, I don't feel like. I said, no, I know we're make-believing. Okay, if you want to say make-believing, you're the star, okay? You're the celebrity in the room. There's nobody else here. You're on the podium. There's thousands of people listening, and they're only listening to you, and they're hanging on every word you're saying. Now tell me what you do for a living. It was amazing. These women were like, well, I do this, and I do this, and I do this, and I like this, and I'm that, and I'm able to use my skills with this, and I'm really happy that I could do this and this. And then we sit down, and the first person that did it, they were like, whoa. I go, when you are asked to be on that panel or asked to speak on the 6 o'clock news, you've been asked for your perspective. Mm-hmm. That's because they think you're the rock star in the room. It's no different. That's why they're asking you. Otherwise, why are they asking you? Mm-hmm. If they already know this, they wouldn't ask you. If they didn't need a social worker's perspective, they wouldn't ask anybody, especially not, and you wouldn't get picked. So you need to walk in there. You're the rock star in the room. You have been asked to be there. They need you to be there. And they were like, well, and my friend who was in the workshop as well, she goes, oh my God, it was such a simple thing. It was such a simple thing. And you could just see the faces all light up. They're like, oh, I get intimidated. It's like, no. You are serving a purpose. Oh God, we need a social worker to talk about homelessness, teenage. Oh, will you do it? Thank you. Mm. You walk in there and you're intimidated? No, you're the rock star. So it was just one of those things that I know I sound like I'm patting myself on the back, but it was one of those things. And there again, I think my improv training, I picked up on the need and thought, to me, it seemed obvious. And to them, it was so lost on them. I don't know why they're asking me. I'm just a stupid old little social worker. Because they desperately need your perspective. That's why you're there.
Yeah.
And so how is it that you don't see it that way? Doesn't matter how much school somebody's had. They need that fifth chair at the podium, or they need that person on the seat. That's what they need. And you're filling that need for them. And they are thrilled that you're there. They're thankful that you're there. Mm-hmm. Oh, I never saw it that way. So it's interesting for me there again to sort of pick up on that impulse of, I wonder what's going on with these. And they all happen to be women. What's going on with these women? Well, of course, some of it's that. Some of it's that. It's the women thing of, I don't really know much as stuff as like the head of the university or someone who happens to be a man or whatever at that point. So some of it's the gender. Mm-hmm. The gender. I don't count as much because I'm a woman. So, we have to fix that.
Absolutely. And
if the Islander discarded women's trying to do anything, is trying to fix that. Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say it's funny that you mentioned that it's women who are maybe less reticent or are more reticent to step forward and voice things, because the workshop that I took at Brave New Workshop was specifically for women in business.
Was it for women? Oh, okay.
Yeah, to help them amplify their stories. So,
can I just?
Yeah, you're right. I completely agree with you.
Can I ask you, and you can edit this part out if you want. Mm-hmm. Who taught the class?
Oh gosh, it was.
Do you remember?
It was a collection of their staff, and they were amazing. They're all so amazing there. Lauren Anderson was one of them.
Okay.
Well,
she's
adore.
No. She's like the best.
Yeah,
ever.
she really is.
She's like the best ever. She's like the best ever.
Katie McEwen was there.
Okay. Yep.
And another wonderful performer who was a woman who at that time was one of the owners.
It was Jenny.
Yes.
Jenny Lillidahl.
Yes.
I mean, all those guys are younger than me. I was at the workshop. I was in the resident company, and in 1980, from 1983 to 85. I was there for 2 years. So, but anybody that worked at Riggs, we're all, or Gravy Workshop, it's a big family. But, so I know those people. I didn't work with them, but I do know them because we're part of this extended family. So yeah.
Such a great arts community in the Twin Cities.
Yeah.
So much
very
talent.
much so. Yeah. Yep.
So as we're kind of rounding the end of this, tell me what the Island of Discarded Women looks like 5 years from now.
Oh, okay. 5 years from now. Wow. That's a really good question. Let's just say I'm hoping that it's still afloat, so to speak, with the island, or it didn't sink or whatever. I don't know. Do islands sink? I guess they can sink. I hope it's still afloat. It may have morphed. It may have evolved into something different. I don't even know if bigger, better is even the way. It may have just evolved into something by then. I do. I hear. I have not used the word, but other people have used the word to me, fans, or listeners, or people who come live. The word community. I love being a part of this community, and it's like, oh. Or I'm so glad you started this community. And I'm thinking, I didn't set out to start a community, to create a community. However, if that's what ultimately is created, that's the best thing ever, right? That's the best thing ever. So I'm hoping with that community in mind that maybe in 5 years, there's still a community. Is it still a podcast? Is it still a live show? I have no idea, but I'm hoping that the goal to raise women's voices, speak out, speak up, and to share stories and to empower each other and inspire each other, and is still happening in some form. Is that a cop-out answer?
Hopefully no way. No, and I look forward to watching you continue to grow this and evolve and to reach more people.
Yeah. And it's, what's nice about the podcast part of it is the people who aren't here live and send me lovely notes and stuff like that. And so it's nice that there's a far reaching, that we're reaching more people that are not just the ones coming live. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sue, thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, sure. Well, thank you for inviting me. It was my pleasure.
All right.
It was fun.
What a fun conversation. For more information about the Island of Discarded Women, including details about their live shows, or to listen to their episodes, go to islandofdiscardedwomen.com. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Communicating Good. Thank you for tuning in. See you next time.